Welcome back to the Manor. Julian McBain here, and today I want to do something a little bit different. We're going to not focus on a single game, but talk about several games, and I want to talk about the games industry in general. Recently, we had two releases that have had a huge impact on gaming overall. The first, of course, is Palworld, and the second is Helldivers. And so what I want to do is talk about these two games and contrast them a bit with AAA releases as of late, and just ask the question, what the hell are AAA developers doing? So, before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome to the Manor. Please take a moment and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And I actually got a comment on my last semi-video essay, the one where I was saying don't email Nintendo anymore, about my ambition to have 13 million subscribers. So for those of you who are just running across my channel, the reason I set that as a target is because I was looking for, one, something that was intensely difficult to do and probably unattainable, but two, easily measured. So at the time that I started doing recordings, that was 1% of YouTube's total account base. So that's where that number comes from. Okay, so let's get into this for just a minute. I want to know what AAA developers are doing. What are you doing? We have two outstanding releases that have come out in the first 2 months of 2024. Both are by small indie developers with teams at 100 people or fewer. Like Palworld, I think you can fit the entirety of Palworld's development team inside a phone booth. For those of you who don't know what a phone booth is, please look that up on Google. But it's crazy to me that Palworld's only 60% complete. And it's more polished than anything Bethesda's put out in the last 10 years. Let's think about that for a second. An early access, 60% complete by the admission of the developers. And for all its flaws, it is far more polished than anything Bethesda's put out in over a decade. I mean, I remember my excitement when I got Fallout 4 and all the problems that game had, especially early on, which of course they've polished out a lot, but I mean, some developers like Bethesda will rely on the modder communities in order to work out the problems with their own games. Why? How have we as a customer base to these developers allowed this to happen? That's what I want to know. And Game Freak is no exception to this. And this is why, and of course I've done a lot of grousing about this in the previous quote-unquote video essay, but I do need to address this. If you make the same game for 20 years and someone puts out a similar game to you with a ton of innovation in it, or just enough to make it really interesting and they're really popular, you don't get to complain when they're really popular. You had the chance. You had 20 years to do this. So what have you been doing with those 20 years? You've been profiting off of people who will buy all of your games and all of your merchandise for $60 a pop. Actually, I think those only go for like 40, but still for a lot of money. You put out the same game every year with a couple of minor innovations and profit. And then when someone comes along and just blasts you out of the water, you get mad. You played yourself. But this goes into all of the other games that have really released as of late. Like Call of Duty. Another rinse and repeat type game. They don't innovate. The storylines have only gone downhill. So, and then games that are actually worthwhile. What was the name of that one they recently took off of Steam? It was it The Line? It was the one where you actually have to make a lot of gray moral decisions and you often feel like shit at the end of it. And that's what it's supposed to. It's supposed to make you think. It's a first-person shooter. Yahtzee did one on this. Game The Line. Spec Ops The Line. That's what I'm thinking of. See, I had it. Spec Ops The Line. So, Spec Ops The Line, I haven't played it, so I don't know the experience myself, but I have learned to trust Yahtzee Crenshaw, or Crawshaw. Yahtzee. You know who he is. Fully Ramblematic. If you don't know who he is, go look up Fully Ramblematic. One of the best game critics I have ever listened to. Anyway, he was like blown away by it, and it was done at a time when repetitive new season, like you get a new Call of Duty every year, and it's just figure out what it is. And it was, again, Spec Ops The Line was made by a small indie developer, and it completely blew away the competition. So I want to know what AAAs are doing. Like, Bethesda puts out Starfield, and everything I've heard about it, like, I almost bought it, and then everything I read and heard about it was chicken fried garbage. Like, garbage. To the point where I had friends that also stream, like Lorespade, come in and just be like, don't play Starfield, play No Man's Sky, because it's far better. And I mean, I've never played No Man's Sky, but I've watched other people play it. It seems okay. I can see where a lot of people would get bored of it because of the style of gameplay, but that's, I mean, like, it's not my thing. But I can also see where a lot of people would enjoy it. And actually, it's got a lot of allegories with Entropia, so there you go. But it's just, AAA developers need to step up, or they need to step out. And I'm going to throw criticism at some of the big ones that really need it. Number one is Bethesda. Bethesda, your IP might be arguably it's arguably the most iconic, but it's definitely in the grouping of most iconic IP in the game space. The only people who might be more iconic in gaming is Blizzard with Warcraft. Like, Fallout is a flagship series. Elder Scrolls is a flagship series. You had a chance to finally make a space game that would be a flagship series, and you blew it. How much money did you spend on that piece of garbage? How much money? People bought it because they were like, Fallout in space, rock on. And everyone's like, wait, this is not Fallout in space, this is kind of crap. Despite that, then you turn around and you have people like, who the hell developed Palworld? Was it Pocket Play? Is that their name? I think it's Pocket Play. Pocket Pair. Sorry about that, Pocket Pair. So Pocket Pair pops out, and they throw out a survival game with all the survival elements. They add an element of Pokemon into it. It's 60% complete, and they blew Starfield out of the water first day. Like, come on, guys. You had a chance to impress us, and you failed. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge Bethesda fan. Like, I bought Fallout 4 Special Edition. I didn't even have a computer at the time that could run it. I didn't know that, but like, I have the Pip-Boy sitting not 6 feet from me right now. That's how much I love Bethesda. And they just keep disappointing. I'm really hoping Fallout 5 doesn't turn into a massive disappointment. Like, Fallout 4 is gorgeous from a stylistic standpoint. It looks dusty and destroyed for a reason, of course, but from an all-around aspect, it's gorgeous. It's an amazing game. My only real complaint about the game is the guns, and a big chunk of that is because, well, I use real guns, and a lot of the guns in that game aren't very practical. But outside of that, I mean, that's what mods are for. I can always mod in an M4 if I really don't want to use whatever they have for an assault rifle, but honestly, Righteous Authority is one of the best weapons in a video game I have ever played. It is my favorite by far in any shooting game so far, so I guess they did okay. I will admit that I was underimpressed by the fact that they basically expanded in a side quest from Fallout 3 and into a entire game, but they made it work. So, and being as I have never been able to finish Fallout 4, I need to do that at some point. Maybe that's entirely on me, and I'll accept that. But all the reviews of Starfield, all of the problems in Starfield, and I knew day one, like, I almost downloaded that the day it came out to do a stream. And that was when I was doing Armored Core. And I was like, no, we're gonna let this ride. And on that note, I do need to bring From Software into this rant, because it's very important that we recognize From Software. From Software is, to my knowledge, classified as a AAA studio. Unlike Bethesda and Blizzard often, From Software doesn't put something out until the amount of polish on it makes it reflect the player back at themselves. People don't like From Software games not because they're poorly made or poorly put together, but because some people don't understand that From Software makes real video games, not just interactive storytelling. And I'm saying that very specifically. From Software makes video games, not interactive storytelling machines. And that doesn't mean that there aren't good stories in From Software games, although they tend to focus more on the gameplay than the story elements, because a lot of their stories do tend to be a bit thin or obscure. Looking at you, Dark Souls, looking at you, Armored Core. But the fact of the matter is that they still make games the way we had games back in the 80s and 90s. Like, I don't know, anyone who's over the age of like 30 can back me up on this. So for anyone who came into gaming in the aughts, or even the early 2010s, video games used to beat you in the face until you figured it out. I'm dead serious. Like, there are games I used to play on the NES that were disturbingly difficult, like brutally unforgiving. In the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game for the Nintendo Entertainment System, it was a 2D 8-bit graphic Ninja Turtles game. There was this one level called The Dam, and literally everything on that level that you could touch would kill you, and you had to disarm. What was it? 6 bombs? 4 bombs? 6 bombs? Someone comment if you remember how many bombs there were in the Dam level. You had to disable them all, and you had a timer. And again, if you touched the seaweed, it would kill you, or it would hurt you, and then eventually you die. And then there were some things that would just one-shot you. So, like, that's why when From Software puts out a game and people are like, this is so brutally tough. No, it's not. Yes, Dark Souls is incredibly difficult. Armored Core 6, incredibly difficult. I still haven't beaten the final boss. And you're like, which one? The final boss. The one you have to do all of the other stuff before you can fight them final boss. I have not figured that shit out yet. But that's back when games were deliberately tough. A lot of games today are not tough. Now, some games like Pal World, where there's a big survival aspect, it's more a test of your ability to manage resources than just be brutally difficult on boss fights. And I can respect that. Although the leveling system in Pal World does make it so that if you're under level, it does become geometrically more difficult to fight the boss. But unlike that, I never noticed that before. Unlike that, what was I saying? But the gameplay elements that are challenging are more of the find your resources, manage your resources well, deal with raids, don't get into places you're not supposed to go, stay out of the bad stuff, which are all good gameplay mechanics. And again, that's the primary purpose of that game. You're not there to find something to ram your head against until it dies. You're there to figure out all of the other elements. By comparison, Helldivers is almost the opposite. Helldivers is a true video game in the fashion of a FromSoft game. And again, it's incredibly polished. Does it have its issues? Well, yes, it's going to have its issues. The spawns in Hell World probably need some refining on the algorithm. And I would argue that pre-planned encounters should not be able to spawn in extra encounters. But that being said, I don't know if that's a bug or a feature, or if that was just something they never thought about. But the fact of the matter is that Helldivers is a game that they deliberately put out to be tough. And it is tough. It's incredibly tough. But it's good. Like, I've played 6 hours-ish of Helldivers. I'm only level 3. So actually, no, I've only played 3 hours of Helldivers because I have 2 videos out at about an hour and 20 minutes apiece. And of course, there's always some other things you have to do in the background that I don't record. So I probably played 3 hours of it. I'm level 3. I've got my frustrations with it, but like, it's just like Armored Core in that it's incredibly difficult. The other thing is Helldivers is meant to be played with a team, and I solo it because I don't have a team to ride with. Maybe I should fix that. So like, if you're going to solo Helldivers, you got to remember that it's going to turn out to be tough because it's designed for you to have four people in the game, not just yourself. So if you're soloing it, and that's probably part of my problem is I'm running into encounters meant to be, 4 against them, and I only have me, which means I'm running out of ammo way too soon. But it's an incredibly polished game. It also makes for some fantastic review of propaganda, and I am going to encourage you to go to Google Books if you have an Android. And I don't know if they'll have this on the iPhone or on the App Store for Apple, but I would encourage you to go look. And the name of the book is Propaganda, and it's by Edward Bernays. For those who don't know, he was the one who basically invented modern propaganda. And the propaganda they put in Helldivers for like the what's the word I'm looking for the fluff is amazing work if you were to compare it to all of the instructions Bernays puts in his book. And I've only read part of Bernays' book, but I've also read a lot of stuff by another person who used Bernays as a basis, and that was one Goebbels. Goebbels was an evil person. Like, I am not complimenting him because he was good. I'm complimenting his skill. Two things can be true at the same time. Goebbels was one of the worst human beings ever to exist, and he was an outstanding propagandist. So it was very interesting watching them, the Helldivers team, put together some of the best propaganda I've ever seen. And in today's day and age, we got a lot of propaganda flowing around. There's a shitload of propaganda all over the place. Pro-American, anti-American, pro-this group, anti-that group, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of it's just like half-baked nonsense. I mean, you can go onto any of the mainstream media, and I'm not like calling out one individual. I'm calling it all out. I don't care if you're on the left or the right. It's just cheese. It's like, guys, I could literally take 10 minutes and make better propaganda than you do. And they just don't know what they're doing. But Helldivers just makes fantastic propaganda. And it's really reminiscent of Starship Troopers. I mean, the derivation from that game is obvious. On one side, you've got Starship Troopers, and on the other side, it's basically Warhammer 40K, because you're fighting against robots. So it's basically the Space Marines versus the Necrons, is what it comes down to. Either way, very well put together. I really want to applaud both of these studios. Oh, and one other thing about Helldivers. So Helldivers, for all of its flaws, of which it does not have many, and I mean that, I absolutely mean that. Helldivers does not have a lot of flaws. Most of the flaws, my biggest thing on it is that it's very difficult to play single player, and I'm primarily a single player person. If you decide to play a game that's meant to be multiplayer, and you decide you're going to just do it single player because you're stubborn like me, that's on you. And again, that's on me. And to be honest, when I was playing it, that didn't really run across my mind. It's like, why is this so... why are there so many enemies? Like, I had full ammo, and I completely ran out of ammo before I had the chance to actually finish. And part of the reason was because, it's because it's not meant for single player. Well, stupid. Maybe if you got a team together, you wouldn't have this problem. And it's true. Arrowhead Game Studios made Helldivers, by the way. Go follow them on Twitter, by the way. They're awesome. And then their CEO, like Arrowhead's CEO, is the one who does most of their, like, on Twitter. If you say something to him, he'll actually answer you. Like, he responds to customer complaints on Twitter, which is awesome. I'm trying to remember what his name is. Come on. Okay, I don't know why it's not searching properly. Arrowhead Games CEO search. Oh yeah, he made a freaking what the hell was it? He made it like a 2 a.m. friggin', here it is, Pilestead. made it like a 2 a.m. tweet that he had to retract later because he was so tired he didn't realize what he was saying. But, I mean, they're all over it. They're all over it. So yeah. Helldivers, Palworld, keep doing what you do. Pocket Pair and Arrowhead, keep doing what you do, guys. You have earned every penny, and don't let anyone try to chase you out of the industry just because they're jealous of you. And as for the rest of us, or as for the AAAs, take a lesson from what these two studios have managed to do with 1/10 of your budget and less than half of your staff. They have managed to put out 2 amazing pieces of work while you've been sitting on your thumbs. So, time to step up or step out, AAAs. That's all I got. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, 1 subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And as always, I really appreciate the support, and we'll see you in the next one.